Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for responding to our question of the day as to whether or not you are or not going to be sending your child back to school. We'll get a couple of them to you in a short while, but let's quickly talk to the unions this morning. And as you know, the Department of Basic Education, teachers' unions, MECs of education, school governing bodies and other stakeholders met on Saturday and agreed that schools should reopen today for grades 7 and 12. This, of course, comes amidst teachers and their unions being at loggerheads with the department for weeks about the lack of readiness of schools amidst COVID-19. In a joint statement, the teachers' unions NAPTOSA, NATU, SADTU and PEU said that they are satisfied and welcome the progress the department has made thus far. However, the Educators Union of South Africa, who represents about 27,000 teachers across the country, disagrees. Joining us now, we've got Thompson from the National Teachers Union, that's NATU, and Bruyn from the Educators Union of South Africa, that's EUSA. Gentlemen, good to have you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Leanne.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. So, Alan, let me begin with you. Talk to us about the Department of Basic Education's progress that changed the view of NATU and 4 other unions to agree to reopen schools today.
Well, let me report that initially when we started, we were having a serious problem of many schools that were without water. And the report that we received, as much as we did not agree with everything, but we felt as the National Teachers Union that we can agree on the principle that those schools that are ready must be allowed to continue. However, the agreement was based on the reason that the minister and the MSAs were going to give us a list of all the schools that are ready and a list of all the schools that are not ready. And thereafter, they will come up with a plan which will show that what mechanisms will be put in place within a course of at least a week to make sure that all those schools that are not ready are allowed to have the infrastructure that will allow them to join the other schools. Because as the National Teachers Union, we have been pushing for the principle of no child being left behind and no school must be left behind. So I can assure you that our members who are coming from the schools that are not ready are not going to join the schooling system today simply because of those reasons that I have advanced. We have also contested the numbers that the department was sharing with us. Like, for instance, in as far as you are concerned, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we have more than 1,000 schools that are not ready. In Mpumalanga province, we have 439 schools that are not ready. And also in Limpopo, we have some districts that have not distributed the masks, that have not sanitized the school, that have not cleaned the school properly. We also have a couple of schools also in Gauteng that are still having problems of water and all that. But we said, if we have an understanding that only those teachers who are now, their own environment is declared to be safe, is declared to be healthy, then we can allow our members to go to those particular schools.
All right. So on the other side of the coin, we've got Andre from EUSA, who is against this union, as we mentioned, representing 27,000 teachers. They're against the department's decision to reopen. Andre, why?
Leanne, thank you for the privilege of being on this platform.
Thank you.
Educators Union of South Africa, our stance has been the same since the beginning, that there is absolutely no way, no logical reason for opening schools at the height of a pandemic. This is going to lead to ultimate catastrophe. And the other thing, people are talking about schools receiving PPEs. Who checked the quality of those PPEs? We saw videos of the really bad workmanship of PPEs received at schools. Nobody's talking about teachers. Let's take the Western Cape, for example. Nobody's talking about the 55 schools that has already been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about the teachers who are already infected with this virus and what they are going through. Nobody's talking about them. All people who are saying, listen, these are non-negotiables and schools will not open because of these non-negotiables. Once you say, no, it's a go, schools can open, but this is our concern, that is our concern, then your non-negotiables were just negotiated. And when government talks about speaking to teacher unions, government is talking to some teacher unions, because all role players are not always invited to all these meetings with the Minister of Basic Education. So, Leanne, our stance is very clear. No schools should be open at this stage, not with a almost 50,000 infection rate, not with a between 2,000 and 3,000 daily infections, not with a death rate at that almost 1,000. So why must this opening of schools be forced by what is the agenda of the Department of Basic Education to force open schools at this stage, to force the delivery of PPEs? Who has been tested by the Department of Education? Has all teachers been tested? Has all grade 12s been tested? And will the testing occur every, let's say, 12 to 14 days? Why must it be a rush thing like this to accommodate an academic year and a matric end of the year exam that has been set in the beginning of the year already? Why must the lives of teachers and the lives of children be an experiment to accommodate the end of the year matric paper? We are saying, no, this is a new thing. There's no handbook. There's no manual for this thing. This is being made up as we go along.
Yeah.
So we're saying, take a moment. Rather have all teachers tested, rather have all learners tested, and then we can carry on from there. What happens when a learner is tested positively? Where is that learner support? At home for the 14 days that the learner has to be there.
Yeah.
Hopefully just at home and not in the hospital. The hospitals are full. It's to capacity. Why must government force the agenda of opening schools so hurriedly and so quickly? That is our problem. And we are saying no to opening schools. Keep schools closed at this time till government has this thing under control. And it clearly does not have the pandemic under control. Once your president tells you it is in your hands, you must become worried, Leanne.
Yeah. Andre, what I need to ask you as well is you mentioned that some teachers' unions were only consulted with. Was EUSA consulted with?
EUSA has a file of letters being written to the Department of Basic Education, asking them to be allowed at the table at certain, at times. But we have not only Mr. Zweli answered our letter, answered us once, and this was the last letter that we wrote. So I'm just saying, you can't talk for teachers' unions if you don't have all role players at the boardroom table.
Yeah. Now, your members, that you've got 27,000 members, what are they going to be doing? Are they obliged now to go back to school and teach?
You see, the Department of Basic Education basically gives teachers no alternative. Nobody is talking about the teachers that will be going back to school today, who has underlying conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, because they love their matric class so much, they're willing to risk their own lives to go to school today, to go and teach. Nobody's talking about those teachers. Nobody is giving them an alternative. And then there was some bullying tactics from the department. Now again, they're changing, saying we have on the record where they said, some principals said, listen, if you don't send your children to school, you must deregister them. Now again, the Minister of Basic Education says, no, there's another two options on the table. You see, there's no manual for this. And the Department of Basic Education is making this stuff up as it goes along. So according to us, there is absolutely no logical reason to open schools at the height of this pandemic, because 50 to 80% of school children are asymptomatic. They still can infect others, but you will not pick them up with these scanners and temperature meters that they have at school, that when you test somebody, it shows 47 degrees. So some of the stuff is faulty. They won't be picked up through the screening or the scanning, but still they're being told go to school whilst being maybe infected with a COVID-19 virus.
Yeah. All right, Alan. Let's bring you in. I want to get all your responses to this, because there's been a lot said. What are your views now?
Well, no. As the National Teachers Union, I still want to say something about what my colleague is talking about, Andre, when he talks about nothing that is being said by teachers with comorbidities, nothing being said about teachers with some underlying sicknesses. That is not true. I want to dispute that. It's unfortunate because the colleagues are not in any bargaining council. And perhaps that's the reason why the Department of Basic Education is not inviting them. But it's not true that we have never discussed about this, because we have right now a collective agreement of which we have already communicated with the members of the National Teachers Union, because I'm the one who also signed that collective agreement on behalf of our own members, where we indicated that those that are 60 years and older, they should not return to work. Those that are having the comorbidity or a morbidity, they will also be exempted depending on the motivation that has been made by the doctor. And we have made that call long ago to all our members that you do not report for duty if you are having such conditions. And they were expecting them to fill their forms. They will fill their forms and submit their forms while they are at home, because the Department of Health has already indicated that such people should not be allowed to go to the workplace. But another issue, which I think is very critical to mention, is that we have pushed the Department of Basic Education to ensure that at least all the schools are having the necessary water and decent sanitation. It's true that we still have schools that are having a very shocking state of toilets, and that is why we were happy if we saw the department coming up with initiatives of delivering the mobile toilets to all the schools. What we have done is that we do not want to shoot from the dark. We have requested, as the National Teachers Union, our members to go to school last week and check on Thursday whether the schools are in the right condition for them to be able to resume duties today. We are very clear. We are not going to allow teachers to go to school when the schools are not in the right conditions for them to resume their teaching and learning duties. That is why then I think it's also important to highlight that we will be compromising ourselves if we make a call to every single teacher and use a blanket approach and say those teachers must go to school. It shouldn't be like that. But we are making a follow up to all the provinces, ensuring that we are pushing them, because we do not want some of the schools to be left behind. The issue of screening, it's a method that has been adopted by the Department of Health, that they are not going to sort of test the teachers even before they could get that they have through the thermal detectors very high temperature for them. We know that no one has a clear picture about the conduct or the behavior of the virus, because it is still a very new virus in this republic and also abroad.
Yeah. So Alan, I just want to ask you this question in terms of, I saw a statement coming out from the EFF yesterday, and obviously there have been a lot of statements that come out, but one of the lines that jumped up from me was basically saying that the department bases its assessment on readiness on what it defines as variables that determine readiness as schools according to them, and that can never be 100% ready. Basically, for the department's readiness, they may refer to a building with broken windows, desks, dysfunctional toilets, and small classrooms. But as long as they've got their PPE and everything, they can still go back to school. Now, this worries me, because it should be on the onus of the department to fix up these schools. But the bottom line is that now there's different criteria that have been set in place so that these schools can go back. And it's very worrying for some of these learners under these circumstances, and also those schools that have been vandalized. They haven't properly been repaired yet.
Well, it's true that the majority of the schools that were supposed to be repaired, they've never been repaired. That is why then we said to the department, we are not going to support the reintroduction of grade 11 and grade 6 if those schools are not properly repaired, because we are talking about almost 1,900 schools that have not been repaired. But mind you that not the entire school was torched. You find that perhaps it's the staff room that was torched. You'll find that 2 or 3 classes were torched, but the school is still having sufficient space to accommodate the grade 12, if it's a combined school, to accommodate both grade 12 and grade 7. So that is why then we said to the department, the principle, we are in agreement consequently and conditionally, provided also they will make sure that all the schools that will be open, all the teachers that will be expected to go to the workplace, they meet the variables that they've highlighted. Obviously, those variables must not exclude the existence of the flow of water, not the delivery of tanks, because that's another aspect we highlighted to Rand Water that you can't talk about the delivery of tanks. We are not interested on the delivery of tanks. We are interested on the flow of water from such tanks, the availability of toilets, the promotion of hygiene. It's the key way for us to be able to fight against this virus. So our principle is based on strategies that will assist to promote the hygiene in the workplace for us to be able to sustain our members, for us to be able to make sure that our members are very safe from the virus.
And finally, I have to just give you the last word there, Andre. If obviously the schools are going back, but the danger of not allowing learners to go back at this stage, you know, one has heard that this would be the end of the academic year for 2020 and we need to get this going. Can you agree with that?
Yeah. Educators Union, first I want to say, my colleague with me on the show, we have so much in common, and maybe we should speak more than we will go into the same direction instead of crossing blades. What I want to tell you is that EUSA never said learning must stop. EUSA never said we must not open schools. EUSA simply said it's not the right time to open schools right now. EUSA said we can open schools at a later stage. EUSA is also taking on the Department of Basic Education after the court case between EUSA and the DBE was postponed last week in the North Gauteng High Court. It will occur tomorrow again, where SADTU, with President Vavi being there in full support of Educators Union of South Africa, to not keep schools open at this stage, because you cannot open some. Let's be honest, because the schools who are open will be the more affluent ones, and the schools who cannot open now has been left behind for 26 years. And EUSA is simply saying we will not leave any teacher unprotected. EUSA is simply saying we will not allow any child to be led onto a COVID minefield. We are saying learning should not stop. Schooling should not stop for the year. Schooling should just not start today. Schools should not be open now. And we are maintaining that somebody.
All right. I think we've lost sound, which is I suppose a good point to end it, because I think Andre giving us his explanation as to what he expects from schools. But let's leave it there for now. Those were the responses from the respective unions. Andre de Bruyn, he was from EUSA, they're against schools opening, and Alan Thompson of NATU, he's for the schools opening, and they're basically talking to us about the opening of schools today. We're going to continue to focus on that. In fact, we're going to start going on the country now. We're going to go to the northwest after this. Do stay tuned.